Hi, readers. Welcome to Goddess Garden Book Chat. I'm so glad that you're here. We always like to welcome those who've been here for a long time or if you're new. This is for adults who love a good novel, regardless of the genre, the weirdness, the planet it takes us to, or the openness we find on the pages. So always feel welcome here. Be welcomed and be aware. Topics we discuss in this book club include everything from basement dungeons to other worlds. I will read them all and share my thoughts in this safe space. Now, whether it's morning, noon, or night when you're enjoying this, I'm so happy that you're a part of the conversation. I invite you to my social pages, which are always listed below. So if ever you want to have a deep discussion about a book you're reading, or you want to talk more about the books that I'm talking about, hit me up on those links. Now, I want to share the designs that I'm going to be using going forward. Have you seen how it will match the book we're doing? And this is a perfect example because the book that we're reading and the design make perfect sense. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that because I'm having the best time playing around with my Canva tools and with my internet's vast array of little toys that allow me to do what I do. And I also got a new backdrop. So when I go live, you're going to see my new backdrop. And next week, I have an amazing guest that's going to join me. So look forward to that. There's something for everyone to enjoy inside a book. And let's see what I found for us today, because I think I knocked it out of the park. Today's read is Frankendom and Frankendom's Monster by Robin L. Rothman. Book one is 272 pages. It's a top rated book. It did very well when you look at the reviews and its ratings. It was released in October of 2012. Book two is 237 pages. It's well rated, but not as properly exalted. I shouldn't say properly. It's not as exalted as book one. Book two did well, but book one knocked it out of the park. Book two was released in October of 2019, so there were several years between one and two. But I think it was necessary to make this story go full circle, and we'll talk more about that. Um, the author made a reimagining of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with a BDSM undercurrent. So the book is explicit and it does have adult themes. So if that's an issue or something you want to be conscious of before you go into this read, um, be aware that that is the undercurrent of this story. This was not an audible book, so I did not get the audio version. I had to read both of these books, but they were intriguing enough to pick up both one and two. So let's dig in and start with the characters. And they are Dr. Colin Carter, Dr. Rachel McBride, and Julian Kilmartin. And in order to do this book justice without giving too much of the plot away, because you know me, I hate spoilers. I don't want to do that to you. So I'm going to read the synopsis, and from the synopsis, we'll have a little brief highlight and go over some of the things that I found in both of the books. So let's start with book one in the synopsis. A scientist with an obsession, a protege with an agenda, and a surgeon with needs too long denied. Vascular surgeon Dr. Rachel McBride knows she'd be insane to pass up a prestigious fellowship for the chance to work with Julian Kilmartin's cutting edge research project. The reclusive neurologist has been the object of her submissive daydreams since residency, and time and distance have only strengthened the dark compulsion. To complicate matters, a former lover who was all too aware of her attraction to Julian is also on the team. Charmingly obnoxious Dr. Colin Carter was Julian's protege back in the day, and nothing appears to have changed, or has it? There's an earnestness to Colin now, an urgency she's never seen in him. And he claims her desire for Julian was reciprocated but deliberately left unfulfilled. When she takes the chance and travels to Eastern Europe, Rachel discovers that research is only part of her job description, and submission is only the beginning of the sexual excessiveness Julian and Colin will demand from her. But when the unthinkable nature of Julian's research is finally revealed, Rachel is ready to run from both of the men she thought she knew. Securing her cooperation will take a touch of coercion, a bit of bondage, and all the erotic torture two delicious deviant doctors can apply. That's the synopsis for book one. Now, let me reiterate that the BDSM element of this story is the undercurrent. What does this story justice is understanding what Julian's research is. Julian is on a pathway, and not by accident, he's assembled some of the best people on his team to make his vision come true. He is driven to the point of rudeness, even. He is distant, and he knows what tools to dangle in front of both of the doctors, really, to get what he wants out of both of them. He knows what they both want from him, and he's willing to provide it so that he can, in fact, fulfill his goal. The story itself takes place in Eastern Europe, but the castle, as it is described, harkens you back to what it must have been like when you look at old movies that try to depict what the castle of Dr. Frankenstein looked like. This major, massive laboratory in an old building, somewhat abandoned, somewhat weird and creepy, with a laboratory in the basement, and long hours of work and testing to get to the ultimate goal. And though they work in this environment where it is just them, nothing ever goes unnoticed by those who live around you, work around you, or basically spy on you. And there is a thread of what you think you are doing behind closed doors is being seen by others. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good book, right? So, when I read Frankendom, I didn't know what to expect. But what I found was an extremely fascinating story about what everyone in this book, these three main characters will do so that they can have the accolades on their resume, the boost to their career, and being able to achieve something that's never been done. That's where we're going to leave off for book one. Now let's go to book two. And again, I'm going to read the synopsis, but I had to edit out a lot of the spoilers. Hopefully, if this is something that you're going to journey into, I would not read book two synopsis because it gives way too much away. And I think it's really worth reading and appreciating how you get to what happens in book two. So, this is a quote: "I'd rather die than live as your monster." That's what I told Julian, but he ignored my wishes and performed an experimental transplant. I spend my days hiding in a castle, keeping Julian's research on a tight leash and searching for clues. Brianna McBride turns that plan on its head when she spies on me in my bath. When I lock her in my dungeon, the sexual energy between us is explosive and potentially deadly. The only way to ensure we both make it out alive is to negotiate a BDSM scene and call in Hans Humpman. I think I'm saying that right. Hans Hauptmann. See, this is what happens when you don't have an audiobook. So forgive me if I got that wrong. But they call in Hans to watch over as they play. And even that's a risk because he's brutally sexy and determined to bring me back to life, whether I like it or not. But there are darker forces at work. In this cursed castle, no matter how vigilant we are, someone will wind up dead. I just hope it's not one of us. That is telling you a lot, but there's so much more because book two is the perspective from the creation that happens from book one. And go back and look at every depiction of the monster created by Frankenstein, and you really don't get a fair perspective of what it must be like to have been brought to life in such a way. And as he's made it very clear, this was not what he wanted. And he made that clear, apparently, before this surgery ever got underway. But it definitely makes you look at the plot idea is why is Kilmartin doing this? His passion for this project and why he does something against what are the wishes of the person he's doing it to are crucial in tying both of these two novels together. And it will make perfect sense to you should you read it because you now understand and you could almost put yourself in a position to say, would I actually do that if I were in the position, if I had the ability? Would I do this if I knew that I could? But it's also refreshing to hear from from the perspective of the creation. It's really eye-opening because what you think you are doing as a gift to someone is not always what they want to receive. And so the the overall way that I would like to say that the techniques that the author uses to tell this story is that it stays true to the identity of what a scientist is truly driven to do, what their purpose is, what their focus is. If science is the number one thing that drives them, they will not be deterred. And for that, you've got to kind of respect Julian's passion, regardless of the detriment that it does to society and the harm that it does to the people around him. I had to give this an ovation, which is a rating 5, if you remember our scale. Um, this book was outstanding to me personally because I got to really appreciate on a deeper level what sacrifice means to some people, whereas to others, it's an abhorrent idea. And I thought this was so well done, and I was so appreciative of how this book came together. So hopefully, I've given you a great review, and I've hopefully picked a great book that you'll soon enjoy. But again, we've got so much more coming down the pike. Got a lot of books to get through, and I'm so glad you're a part of this club. So, what I'm going to say in closing is let's leave with a focus on what books are out there and return with what books we found that make our day. And we're going to close this chapter with a bookmark. And until we meet again, book club, I want to say thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.